This is Singles Exchange. Let's talk, let's hang. This is Singles Exchange. Singles
All right, welcome back to Singles Exchange, a podcast that focuses on conversations, connections, and community. As always, I am your host, Joy J, and we have a super exciting episode today. But before we get started, I want you guys to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to Singles Exchange on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and whatever your streaming podcast platform may be. Now, if that's Apple, Google, that's your business, but listen to it some type of way. Um, and we're going to go ahead and get started today. We have another installment in our discourse on dating. And actually, this is an extra credit episode. And this one is called Dating While Adapting. So we're going to hop right into that. And of course, I'm featuring a special guest, the lovely Miss Bri. And I will let her tell you guys a little bit about her.
Hey y'all. Joy, first off, thank you for having me, girl. I am so excited. This is fun. I remember we were supposed to do this a little while back, but here we are. Okay.
Life happens, okay?
And so I'm Bri Michelle. I am the author of Confessions of a Young Adult's Life.
I have my copy.
Yes, thanks, Joy. My book has been out officially for almost 2 months now. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about this new journey that I'm taking as an author. I also am the founder and CEO of Fruitful.Poetic.Life Publishing Company. So what we do there is we pretty much help minority or artists. I hate using the word minority. We help people of color. I would like to say that better. So we help people of color publish their material, publish their books, and it's not to say that we don't have a white audience, because we do. We're kind of international. I'm excited about that. On the low, a little bit on the low,
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. We help, but we help authors, and we help small companies like Singles Exchange. We help them build their social media platforms. We create websites for them, and we help them publish material. So just a little small business on the side that I got going on, my side hustle that I'm trying to make into my main hustle.
Listen, the real mood, okay?
I guess what else about me? I'm single. Single and available. I want to make that clear.
Come on.
Look, I gotta put it out there for the people. I am single and available, because a lot of us be single, but we don't be available.
Honey, say that again.
But I'm available. Okay.
Say it again.
I'm just waiting on Jesus to answer my prayer. Amen.
And he will.
And waiting on that. I can't wait. Okay. But so that's I guess the short of it for me. That's who I am, y'all. I'm so happy to be here as an avid member. Oh, I am an avid member. And
she is a top fan.
A top fan on Singles Exchange. You hear me? You see my gear?
She has on her gear. Exactly. And I didn't mention that earlier, but Brittany and I are both rocking our Singles Exchange shirts. I don't know if y'all can see mine, but she has on the white one, I have on the black one, and you want to grab them while they listen. I can tell y'all right now, it's a couple of sizes that I'm down to one shirt. Grab your shirts now, and the next time we do a t-shirt order, do it on the pre-order so you can make sure you get your stuff.
Yes, I love a pre-order, okay?
Love a pre-order, because that way you're sure to get what you need. Exactly. And we do have some new merch coming, but y'all gotta wait for that. It's gonna come out, give y'all a little razzle dazzle at the start of the new year. Little fancy stuff. We working on it.
Y'all better be over there working at Singles Exchange.
Listen, I will say this: the staff is the bomb, which we're recording this way ahead, but the episode that premiered today on the podcast is all about the staff, and they the bomb. So if you're an exchanger who's listening for the first time, or maybe you're just catching on to this series, go back to the episode that debuted in October 6th, and check it out, because you want to hear about that staff, because they're the bomb. So
Hey, mom, I'm watching. I'm gonna listen to it as soon as we done.
yes,
I saw
and
that
you're gonna
pop up.
love
I
it,
said, let me listen to this.
and you're gonna love it. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So Brittany, you were born and raised here. Give me a little rundown about that.
Yes. So I am originally right now. I live in Virginia, so I'm in the South. You know how we divide stuff technically. So Virginia is
Right.
considered the South. South, I consider the East Coast, but here we are. So I live currently in Virginia, but I was born and raised in Illinois. So I am a Midwest girl in
Yes.
at heart. Southern Illinois. So not to be confused with Chicago, because every time you say Illinois, people think you're from Chicago. I'm not
Listen,
from Chicago. I'm from Southern Illinois, East St. Louis to be exact.
come on, the
Not St. Louis,
city
Missouri,
of champions.
but East St. Louis, Illinois, the city of champions. Yes.
Huh? That's real good.
We
And
got a
so it's
whole
interesting.
Mississippi between us, okay?
And do. It's interesting because so I was born and raised in Chicago, as you know. And when I came down here for school, people were like, "Oh, you gotta be from Chicago. You act just like them Chicago people." And I'm like, we are from Illinois. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's not a big deal to us. But
It's a
I
difference,
didn't
though. You
know
hear
because I was raised
it.
in Chicago. I didn't know that everywhere else people was just like the only thing in Illinois is Chicago. And I'm like, it's not though. Like, who told y'all that? It's a whole state.
It's a whole state. But when I tell you, if when I tell people where I'm from, they be like, I'm from Illinois. They say, oh, Chicago? No, I'm
No.
from East St. Louis. Oh, St. Louis? No. Okay, yeah, I'm tired of explaining. And
Right.
so if you got time, like for where I'm from, unless I have time to explain to people, I just be like, yeah, St. Louis. Just go with that.
Make it simple.
It's
That's
good.
what I do too now. If somebody's like, "Well, where do you live now?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm in Belleville," and they're like, "Well, where is that?" I'm like, "It's in Illinois." Oh, by Chicago? No, it's by St. Louis. St. Louis, Missouri? Yeah, I know it's complicated, but that's where we are. So
A whole 4 hours. A whole 4 hours
it's a
away.
whole 4 hours between here and Chicago. People don't get it. They don't get it.
They don't.
They don't. So tell me about what made you decide, because you said you were born and raised here in Southern Illinois. We met in college here. What made you decide to make such a big leap and move so far away?
You know, Joy, it's funny that you asked me that because actually, to be honest, it was always a part of the plan. Since I was a
Mm,
kid, I've always wanted to live on the East Coast. I've never really, it's not to say that I don't love where I'm from, but I've always had this desire to live on the East Coast. Specifically, I wanted to live in Boston, Boston, Massachusetts. And that was just my place. That's where I just always desired to go. I was, as a kid, I heard about Paul Revere, of all things, of all people, history. I heard about Paul Revere, and then I was like, oh, I should live in Boston. I don't know why I made that correlation with wanting to live in Boston because of Paul Revere, but that was my thing. Now, of course, I didn't end up in Boston. Maybe one day I will, but it was around 2013 when they had got them 100 inches of snow, and I was like, I don't know if Boston is the place for me anymore.
that might not work for my life.
And that may not be my ministry because I'm just like, I don't know if I want to be stuck in the house and can't get out. That ain't for me, Jesus. So
That's dangerous.
I had the opportunity to visit Boston. It was beautiful. It was around the winter time then when I did visit, but it was still a beautiful place. So it still has a special place in my heart. So one day I might end up there. But weird thing. Wanted to live in Boston, but wanted to work at the Library of Congress. And so I was just like, how? How? I don't know how geography worked in my head as a kid, but I
But
was
you had it mapped out.
how? Boston is literally 6 hours, about 6.5 hours away from where I am now in
Oh
Virginia.
my
So I was like,
God.
how in the world was you going to live in Boston and work in DC. How was that gonna work? It was. I'm like, I was gonna be racking up frequent flower miles like crazy, like
Every day, huh?
every day. That was not going to work.
Oh my
But
gosh.
so I ended up in Virginia. So this has always low key been a part of the plan to live on the East Coast. I did have the opportunity to live on the East Coast for 1 year. I lived in Pennsylvania, and that was kind of like my teaser. That was
Yeah.
my introduction to the East Coast life and the East Coast world. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely it. It's just always been there. And I'm like, God, why? I never really knew why. I'm just like, God placed this down on the inside of me for some reason. And so I just always felt drawn to this area of the country. And so, yeah, I mean, anybody that knows me and that's close to me, they have always known that the end goal or the goal has always been to live on the East Coast. And so
Wow.
this is where I am.
That's dope. Do you have family there? Or did you just like pack up like I'm out of here?
I have a cousin that lives here. She's about maybe 30 to 45 minutes away from me. But she's a part of my immediate family on my mom's side. But we're not as close, but she's still, she's a cousin. She has her own family. And so I try to not impose on them as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took the drive alone. The both times that I've moved and did like such a drastic change in moving, I did it alone. And it was always nice because I always kept brung my car with me, and I only had enough room in my car for me and my stuff. So it's like, look, I ain't got no extra room unless y'all
Mm-hmm.
gonna catch a plane or something to get here. But it is always been fun to be able to just take a road trip of that magnitude. It's about where I live now currently is about maybe 12 and a half hours from home.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a nice little ride, but it's actually a shorter ride than what it was when I was living in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania used to take me about 15 hours to get home. So yeah,
And you drove
I drove each time,
by
both
yourself?
by myself through the mountains, girl, in Ohio. It was so
Listen,
much.
the mountains is what would get me. I can't do the mountains.
Yeah, the mountains is it's interesting to drive through them. I never had an issue driving like past them and looking because it's a beautiful sight. It was when them times when I had to drive under them, I was like, oh Jesus, God, you're gonna have to get me through
I'm
here because these
nervous.
walls is cracking. I don't know what fool thought it was good to put a road in the
A
middle of a
road
mountain,
trip.
but let me get up out of here.
That's crazy. And I'll be, listen, once I hit the 3 hour mark of my trip to Chicago, I'll be like, I'm over this. Get me out this car right now. I could not do 12 and 15. Ooh, honey,
Yeah,
you a trooper. You are a trooper.
frequent breaks. I take, and I just power through. I don't even think about it really. I just really just power through. I every maybe 4 hours, 4.5 hours, because my car can go at least 4 hours without me having to stop for gas.
Yeah.
So every about 4.5 hours, or maybe a little shorter, depending on what my bladder want to do. I get out, I stretch, and I might sit for about 15, 20 minutes. And then after that, I'm back on the road and I'm gone. And I miss that. I miss that a lot now that we're hopefully in December we won't still be in quarantine, but guess we in case we are, I really missed being able to be in the car and to drive. I find I didn't know that that was like a safe space, a relaxing thing for me until I couldn't do it. And I did it this summer. I went to visit home this summer in June, and I drove home. And that drive back home really just helped to kind of like relax some of the anxiety that I had about being cooped up in the house during this pandemic, and it
Man,
helped a whole lot.
man, listen, that's one thing that I do appreciate about my drives home. When we were in college, whenever there's a road trip to Chicago, you're not going by yourself.
Right.
Like that's just not a thing because there's so many people from Chicago who like, oh, I want to go home for the weekend. You going home for the weekend? Like it's always somebody. But being a graduate now and being a single who I ain't got nobody roll with me, and most of the time people have other things to do. Driving by myself, it's very therapeutic. Um, and I don't know what it is because we single. Like I live alone, so it's not like I don't be by myself in my house, but it's just something different in your car.
I agree. It's something different about being in the car. And I guess because it's a part of, even though you've probably been there before, it's a part of the journey. And
Yeah.
it's something about, I guess, that journey or that physical act of going somewhere different than the space that you've been accustomed to is
Mhm.
what's so relaxing. And so even though I was driving home, the fact that one, I was driving home and I was going to be able to see my family because I hadn't seen them since December, but then two, it was just a physical act of me getting up out of this apartment by myself and going somewhere and getting some fresh air and seeing some other than
Yeah.
four walls is
Change of
what
scenery.
really just made me feel so good about
Yeah.
getting on the road for
That's a
real.
real thing. Change of scenery makes a huge difference.
Whew. And
So
I
you
know
talked
that too now.
about uh-huh. So you talked about being far from home, which I can kind of attest to that because when I got to SIUE, which is where we went to school,
Mhm.
um I didn't have any family here. There was a young lady who she kind of like a big cousin, but she not really related. And she was in St. Louis, and like she's way older than me, and I didn't have a car anyway, so it was kind of like she's there in case of emergency, but it's just me type of
Okay.
thing. And then in 2011, one of my cousins came to SIUE, so it was awesome to have her here while she was in school, but she graduated and she moved away. So it was kind of like back to just me, huh? So it's not a bad thing, but it's different. And being that our family is very close knit, it was a hard adjustment for me to see things that I couldn't get home for. Like the reality is, I'm 4 hours away. I can't come home every weekend. So there are some events that I have to miss, and some family gatherings, and funerals, and baby showers. Like it's things that I miss that had I been home, I would have been there for. And that was a huge adjustment for me. So, what was for you the biggest adjustment with moving 12 hours from home?
Girl, all the things that you just said is like things that I try my best not to think about because it is kind of heartbreaking when you really realize that oh well, I'm missing birthdays, I'm missing people passing away, and I really don't like going to funerals anyway, but just the thought of being able to be there with my family, um you know and so it is definitely a little hard to have to deal with that, especially when I think about like missing my nephew's birthdays, and being that helping to raise them was such a significant part of my childhood or of my rearing and growing up as a teenager. It is hard now, the sacrifices that I'm making away from them in those years that I'm kind of losing watching them grow up. And every time I see them, I'm like, yo, like I just saw you 6 months ago. Did you grow 5 inches? And I'm like, what? Your voice is dropping, all of this stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, what is happening? And so it's interesting to even have this conversation because for so many years I was just wanting to get away. I wanted to be gone. I desired to leave and not be in the space that I was in. And then so now in some ways I kind of look back on that and I kind of regret just how I operated and how I dealt with life in that situation. For instance, not to bring up a terrible situation, but you and I both had a mutual friend pass away this year, and it was really hard. I took that loss like really hard because one, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So even if I wanted to go home, I still wouldn't have been able to say goodbye in the way that I wanted to
You,
because of the fact that we're in the midst of this thing that we've never seen before, which is crazy because as 90s babies, we've gone through some of the craziest things.
the
For
craziest, like
probably
back
30
to
years,
back.
I've seen some stuff. 9/11, all of these different tragic things that have happened in my almost 30-year lifespan.
Yeah.
But then this thing where I've lost a friend before, but then this is like my second closest friend that has passed away within the last 5 years. And I was like, am I really at this age? Like, what we doing?
Already? Right. What is
Already to be losing friends. And so that hurt me tremendously because I'm literally almost 13 hours away from my immediate family, and I don't have anybody in my physical space that can comfort me. They can comfort me over a phone, but you being on the phone versus me being able to come cry in your lap is two different things. And so that experience really kind of brought up some other griefs for me, dealing with the fact that I am missing like some special moments when it comes to like family and friends. And so I really have been just reevaluating that a lot because it's like, I don't know what it is about turning 30, but as I get closer to 30, it really is just making me put more things into perspective. And so I'm like, is this really like still worth it? And then you think about all of the years that you sacrificed to go and do those dreams and those desires. And then I also think about, try to think about the positive part of all of this is that I'm creating a blueprint. I'm doing something that nobody in my immediate family really dared to do. Um,
Yeah.
I had an aunt that she did move away for about 15 years. She was gone for like 15 years. But in that 15-year time span, she ended up getting married and all kinds of stuff happened for her during that time. And then when she decided that she wanted to start having children, she moved back home. So she's not even out here anymore either. So pretty much all of my immediate family now lives back in Illinois. And so it's just like, oh, like I used her as a basis for myself on what, like, oh, I can, if she did it, I can do this as well. But then now it's kind of like, oh, but do I want to continue to do this? Or is this something, how am I rearranging myself and rearranging my life? So yeah, it is definitely a process. Understanding that, like I said, I am really building a blueprint for another generation because in many ways, I'm making the sacrifices and I'm kind of showing them because I really talk to my nephews about it a little bit as I go along, because I'm showing them how this can be done. Like there are other options and opportunities outside of the space that you grew up in,
Yes.
you live in. And it's not to say that where we grew up and where we live is foreseeably bad, but it's to say that there are other aspects of life and cultures and foods and all types of stuff that you can explore. And so hopefully this does give light a fire in my nephews for them to understand, well, oh, my aunt moved from home for a while, and then so she, I can do it too. But I also want to show them both aspects of the spectrum though. I moved away from home, but I also gonna be real with you about the fact that this is not always easy.
Yeah. That's the
It's
part.
hard to kind of be on your own and to be out here by yourself. But if you have the tenacity to do so, it can be done and you can do this.
And if you have the passion, try because you can always go home.
Yes.
One thing that my pastor always says to kids that are about to go to college or go to the military or wherever they're going, he always says, "Home will always be here. We not going nowhere.
That's
Go. If you need to come back, you can, but go." And I appreciate that as somebody who, like I said, I didn't grow up here. So when he says it, it's always a different thing for me because I understand the go. When I left to go to SIUE, my brain was like, soon as I cross that stage, I'm back to Chicago, first thing smoking. And every step of the way, God was like, "Nah, that's not where you're supposed to be, honey. You let me help you out. Like you where you supposed to be." And so when things started to fall into place after graduation, I was like, "I'll stay here for a couple years." I'm going back home. But now it's like this is where I'm supposed. I get it now. Back then I wasn't really trying to hear it, but I get it. Something that you said that I really liked was you making a blueprint for your nephews and being honest about the good and the bad of being so far from home. Um, when you talked about the death of our friend, that made me think of another instance. So this is 2020. 2018 was a horrible year for my family. Like deaths back to back, people getting sick back to back. Like it was awful. So we had a cousin that passed early in the year, I think maybe in May. And he lived in Texas, so it was already hard to get so many people from Chicago to Texas for that funeral. Then in September, we had another cousin pass sudden. Now both of these cousins they're young, sudden death, like very, weren't sick, crazy stuff. So that one I'm like, I'm not missing this funeral. I'm going, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. So I got home and it was good because I'm a church kid, which you know. So when my family gets together, we can literally do everything. We got preachers, singers, musicians, ushers. Like we don't need we got some people that work in the funeral home. So we could literally do this whole thing ourselves. So it was good to get home for that. And I felt like I had closure, which I didn't have with the other cousin. So I got back to Southern Illinois, and literally the next day they called like, your auntie not gonna make it through the night.
Oh my God.
I'm not doing this no more. Like, we tied. So that last funeral, I couldn't go back for because I literally had just left. And so I had to find a creative way to pay homage to her because I felt like I wouldn't have closure without it. Like, I'm not gonna get to go to the funeral, which most of the time funeral brings some closure.
Mhm.
I can't do that. So what can I do? So I found myself doing things that she would enjoy. She didn't have any daughters, so she always made sure that her nieces were like her other daughters that she didn't have. And so I found myself doing more things with my teens at church, and I found myself volunteering at the ASL center, like stuff like that, just to pay homage. And when I was telling my nephew about it, he was like, yeah, I get it. It makes sense. So I think that's important to teach the people that are coming up behind you, um, that when you do, if you choose to move away from home, there are still ways
Yeah,
to cope, to deal with it. And it makes the time when you are with your family that much more special. So,
absolutely.
yeah, I agree with that. We're going to talk a little bit about dating, then I want to talk to you about the book. So, moving away from home, do you feel like that changed your preferences or your standards? Like when you moved away, how did that affect you as far as dating?
First off, what dating life? Like what day,
Girl,
girl?
girl.
When I tell you, I wasn't even dating before I left, so it didn't. I won't say it changed it as much. I've been single for a period of 7 years now. Like meaning no entanglements, no none of that for the last
Come
7 years.
on,
And
entanglement
so
free.
entanglement free, thank you, Jesus. Okay. So I haven't had any of those types of situations for like the last 7 years.
Yeah,
But here's the thing, my perspectives still have changed because in this last 7 years, I've been still dealing with and processing through some past mistakes and relationships that I had going on, some
yeah,
things that I needed to let go for me to even be prepared to even go into another romantic relationship, and
yeah,
even for me to have better friendships, all of these things for the last I would say really for the last 2.5 to 3 years. When I moved here for sure, I have consistently been going. I'm looking for a new therapist now, but for 2.5 years, I was consistently going to therapy because after I moved here, I started having panic attacks and all of that stuff as
we,
well because I was having really high anxiety about the fact that I'm now alone. Because
yeah,
we be thinking that we be alone and we be separating ourselves, but then we still be surrounded by people.
yeah,
And so I still had the comfort of knowing that even though I'm upstairs in my room and I have my own space, or I'm, wherever, I'm still around family comfort. Even if I'm not at home, I'm in the city somewhere, I'm close by, I have
yeah,
family and comfort. Even when I moved away for that year, I found and built a community there in that space, a real quick, fast community. And I was living inside like of a row house, so I had roommates and stuff.
yeah,
When I moved to Virginia, this was the very first time in my life that I had nobody
yeah,
around. And so I didn't know, I had never experienced that. So I didn't know what that was going to feel like. But when I got here, in many ways, I still deal with periods of isolation. But
absolutely.
I was very low. And so not having romantic relationships and some of my friendships and stuff hanging on by a thread and stuff, it was hard. And going through therapy has really helped me to change my perspective, because once I went through therapy and got that period of healing going and processing, and really started to just reevaluate not just the people around me but myself.
Yeah.
When I started getting healing from all of those things inside of me and started doing better about me and doing better about my attitudes towards me, then my attitude towards men changed.
That's good.
And so I would say that my preferences have gotten better, because there are some things that Bri before would allow that Bri right now ain't gonna go for.
Ain't gonna cut it.
Ain't cutting, honey. I have almost a 24 to 48 hour period or window where you need to figure out what you're gonna be doing.
That's real.
You might be getting blocked, bro, because I don't have the time or the energy to deal with foolishness. Like, this a guy right now that's currently on his time frame, and I'm like, all right,
that be me. All right, so
you better figure out what you're gonna be doing, bruh. We better be moving this conversation along here, or look, I'm fine with moving on, because I finally have really gotten to a place where I am satisfied in my singleness, but still open to opportunities. I would say within the last years when I really have become fully open to even having romantic relationships, even though I've been single for 7 years. So yeah, I wouldn't say that anything has really changed per se, but my preferences have, what they say, the price has gone up.
Listen, and we adding tax.
And adding
Period.
tax. And I need visuals, okay?
Period. So you touched on friends, which I didn't initially put any questions about friends, but I do think that that's a good point of discussion for people who move far away. My best friends all live in the Chicagoland area. So in college, I think we're pretty spoiled. We get to see our friends every day. You know, we kick it with them. I could walk across the street to your apartment or whatever. Adult life is nothing like that. And like, I feel like the last time I physically laid eyes on one of my best friends was not even this year, which is partially because of the pandemic. But still, it's just kind of like, well, oh no, I did see him once, literally once. So friendships also, they change when you move away. Even my cousin who used to live here, when she went to school here, of course we would talk all day, every day. Of course she at my house and I'm at her house. But when she moved away and she got married and she started having children, those things changed. So now I may only talk to her once a week. That doesn't change the fact that she's still one of my best friends / cousins. But the difference is we can't kick it like we used to. We got real life to live.
Girl, my entire all of my relationships changed.
Yeah.
Drastically.
Yeah.
When I moved for a year, and really before I moved, my relationships were starting to change, because like you said, college spoils us.
Yeah.
And after I graduated from college, everything really, before I even got to college, those relationships changed. In college, those relationships were still evolving and changing. After college, all of those relationships changed.
All of them.
And then when I moved to a whole nother, across the country, all of my relationships changed.
Every one of them.
Every single relationship I have has changed and has been tested. And I have always been, I don't know why, but the enemy has always tested me in relationships, period, in general, which you can see some of those dynamics happen in my book with but the enemy has always attacked me in relationships with people anyway. But when I tell you, since I've been living here, things have not been like nothing has been the same. I literally have only seen one of, like you said, one of my best friends once this year. And all of my best friends, for the most part, most of my best friends, they all have children. Most of them are married, and most of them are living their best life with whatever, or they're in serious relationships.
Yeah.
I'm single, and I ain't got no kids.
Real single out here, okay?
Real single out here, ain't got no kids. And I got a job, but that's about it. All I have really, my babies are writing, my babies are my books, my babies are the projects that I'm working on. And then with my family, even my family dynamics change. My family call me when they need help with, like, because they think I'm the IT person, and I'm like, oh, and nobody gonna ask me how I'm doing. Y'all
Right.
just want
Good
something.
morning to you too, family.
How were you today? You know what I'm saying? And so, yes, it is it, girl. It is a test when I tell you relationships are really, you really have to want to do the work. I've been mentioning this line from Insecure, the last season of Insecure, every time I talk about relationships. Because when Molly went to the therapist, I felt like I went to therapy too.
Girl,
Her right.
literally.
When sis said, "Do you want to be right or be in relationship?" I said, "Excuse me, ma'am.
What?
Excuse Nobody asks you
What
to
they say, you in my
look
business.
in my business. Don't do that. Nobody asks you to be all over here.
Yeah,
You want to
literally.
talk to Molly, not to me."
Yeah, that therapy session was it was I had to pause it a couple times, like, all
Yeah.
right.
That line messed me up, okay?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so true, because like another friend of mine, a recent friend that I've been developing with, we were talking about how we live on this island, and you
Yeah.
don't realize that you're living on an island until you really have become fully isolated and stranded,
Yeah.
and you realize that you ain't let nobody come over on the island with you in the wild. And so
That's a
I
real
had to
thing.
really make a decision that, okay, I know that my family and friends may not reach out to me, but I probably need to do right and reach out to them and try to
Yeah.
have connections and relationship with them, because otherwise, if I really want this to work, it may not work if I keep doing it the way that I used to, or if I feel like I should be justified in my right saying that, oh, I moved away, then y'all should want to try to keep in contact with me. But
That's
then,
good.
honey, you're gonna be sitting over there lonely and looking crazy
On
because
that island by
you
yourself
on the island by yourself, because you find out that you ain't as important
as
as
you
you
thought.
thought.
We now you talking good, okay? So yeah, I know a lot of people who deal with that when you move away. Most of my close family, like my cousins and stuff, they haven't been down here, and I used to really be bothered by that. But the older I get, I'm just like, listen, we grown. Y'all got y'all life, I got my life. I see
Mhm.
y'all when I'm in the city. Now, when I'm in the city, they already know the drill. I'm gonna send that one text like I'm in town. I'm gonna be here from this day to this day. You better find your way to this house. So, yeah, that's a real thing.
Make it enough. Better figure it out.
Make it enough.
Yeah, I when I tell you, each time that I've moved, none of my immediate family has ever come to visit me.
Yeah.
Ever. I've
Oh,
only had one person of my immediate family come to visit me, and that's an aunt. And she came to
yeah.
visit me like close to when I first moved here in Virginia. And she came at the right time because I needed somebody to
Yeah,
come
it
check
be
on
like that.
how I was
That's a real thing.
how I was doing. And so she came, and then you really do, you be wanting people to come see about you and see how you're living, to share your experiences with people.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's not going to happen like that. It may not happen because my immediate family ain't got that kind of money to be hopping on planes like that. And then everybody ain't able to drive 12 and a half hours
Honey.
to come see somebody. So it's just like, I have to really learn to adjust my unrealistic expectations when it comes to people seeing about me and coming to see what's going on with me. And that helped free me up some more, because
That's good.
somewhere angry and depressed at folk, and it's just like, why are we wasting this? Why are you wasting your energy and your space like this? Just do something differently. And so
That's
I've been
good.
learning that, and I'm telling you, it is an everyday process.
Every day, literally. So, speaking of processes, I want to hear a little bit about Confessions of a Young Adult's Life. How did that come about? What was your inspiration? Tell me about it.
Confessions of a Young Adult's Life literally came out of this entire experience of moving across the country and really having to sit with myself and deal with my issues. I've always knew since I was a kid. I've always been a writer, and I've always knew that I would write a book about my life. I just didn't know that my life would be so full of stuff to write
Honey.
a book about. And I've always knew that I would write a book, but I just didn't know when I would write the book. I was it was came after I had, like I said, when I first moved here in 2018. Around June is when I started going to therapy consistently, because that was right after I had a really bad panic attack, and I had to call my grandmother to help me to kind of like calm down and get it together. And then I was like, okay, Britt, you need to go to therapy. So 2018, just like for you, was a very rough year for me. When I tell you, transitions are not always easy. They ain't
They're
smooth.
not.
And so it was around November in 2018 when I really started to kind of like, really, Holy Spirit was like, write the book. Right. Because writing has always been cathartic for me. I was like, okay, I'll write, and I'll start writing it out, because I need to get these thoughts out of my head.
Yeah.
And I need to release this stuff because I need to feel better about myself. And so the precursor to the book was actually a blog that I used to have, which was Confessions of a Young Adult's Life. And it was a blog that I was writing for. I wrote every day for a year. And the reason why I wrote every day for a year, because that was therapy for me. Yeah. That was how I afforded to be able to have therapy. I took time out of my day every day to write my thoughts down. And for some reason, I don't know why, I thought that it would be a good idea to share those thoughts with the public. Instead of just finding me a journal and keeping it to myself. I literally have always, the best way for me to do things, I've always exposed my life to other people. I've been very open and transparent about things about my life and things that I've been going through. And so I started writing the book in 2018 in November. And then I was writing for a while, but then I put it down for like 6 to 7 months, because it was starting to get real heavy, because I was talking about and dealing with issues and traumas and things that I hadn't thought about in over 20 some years, stuff that I had been suppressing forever. That feelings and emotions, and 2018 was such an emotional year for me. I cried at least every other day, if not every day.
Honey, you talking right, okay?
Falling every single day. I went to bed crying or something, and I went to work and stuff, but I was just really dragging. I was just literally just carrying myself. And I'm like, my angels is carrying me, honey, most days, because when I tell you it. And so I set it down for like 6 to 7 months, because I was like, I want to make sure that I write from a place of healing. I don't want this to be a blame game. I don't want this to be a book where I, to say, well, mama and daddy didn't do this, this person did that. And then I also wanted to make sure that I was just telling my story and not all of everybody else's story. And so I have stories in there, or in my interlude of the book, I say I go as deep or as shallow as I need to go, because I recognize that there's still a level of protection that I have to put in place in regards to my family, because like it or not, even though those things happen to me, it's like that's still my family. Don't try me, don't try them, because we'll be fighting. And so I have to make sure that I'm writing from the stories from my perspective. And then there's just some stories that I just didn't feel comfortable sharing, because it involved other people, because I could have wrote a tell-all book, and like the stuff that's in the book now, a lot of people think that that's heavy. That's not even the half of it. That's not a small corner of my life. And so I've had people just talk about this small corner of my life. I'm like, but look, y'all really don't. You have no clue. I've lived the life for at least 3 people in almost 30 years. And so then after that, I was like, I've been doing all these other projects for other people. I need to do this for myself, and I need to
Absolutely.
finish this. So it was about June of last year when I was like, okay, Britt, we're going to hanker down, we're going to buckle down, and we're going to get this finished. So
Yeah.
from June to October, I wrote consistently and got the book finished. And then, of course, it took a process of editing and all of that. And then it finally got released this year in 2020. And I'm super excited about
Exciting.
the body of work that I put together. And I'm excited about the people that have taken the time to read it. Go purchase it. It's available on Amazon as a paperback and an ebook. It's called Confessions of a Young Adult's Life, a memoir by Bri Michelle. I'm telling you, the book will bless you.
Yes.
If you know me, and this has been my tagline for the book, even if you know me, I mean, even if we family, there is still going to be something in this book that you learn about me that you had no clue.
Yeah.
Everybody learned something about me. Even my grandmother. There are stories in that book that my grandma knew nothing about, and she was like, "Wait a minute," and I was like, "Yeah, it is what it is." So I'm excited. I'm excited about what it's doing, and I please purchase. You all support me. I'm gonna put it out there. I haven't really said it out loud, but I'm gonna put it out there. I would love to become an Amazon bestseller, and I would love to go from Amazon bestselling on up. I want to
Come
be on.
on, because we need you to be a New York bestseller. How
Yes,
about
I
that?
want to be a New York Times bestseller. Come
Come
on,
on.
help me, people, help us, help a
Yeah.
black business owner.
Right. Buy black. Ain't that what they
Yes,
say?
buy black.
Buy black. So, Bree, tell the people where they can find you other than on Amazon. Because we got you Confessions of a Young Adult's Life. If you're watching the video, I posted it before, but just so you can see, this
Yeah.
is the book. This is what it looks like by Bri Michelle. But where else can they find you?
Yes, you all can find me on Facebook and on Instagram at fruitful.poetic.light. Now, when you go over there on Instagram, you will see that we're doing an overhaul. So there's some things have changed on my Instagram. So even though it looked like it's a little blank, trust me, there's material coming
It's
and there's
coming.
material there. It's just archived. Don't worry about that. But follow me on Instagram at fruitful.poetic.light. Follow me on Facebook at fruitful.poetic.light. And then you can visit our website as well at fruitfulpoetic.light. I'm in the process this week of refixing the website, so I can't wait to relaunch for you all to see the new material and how I worked it up. When you're a one man show or one woman show, you got to do a whole lot. I wear a lot of hats, y'all.
Again, say it again.
Wear a lot of hats, so it's a process. Okay,
It
so
is
bear with me. So if you go to our website, you will see it saying coming soon. It'll be back up by Thursday, I promise y'all.
that. And she also has a podcast of her own that is the bomb. She is definitely one of my top 10 podcasts. So tell them where they can find you there.
Yes. Our podcast, my podcast is called Confessions of a Young Adult's Life, the podcast. And when I tell y'all we talk about some stuff over there, we talk about some stuff. I think my one of my top rated episodes, of course, because it probably people think it's a little messy, is story time. Those several times I was entangled. That is one of the top episodes. That's from season 2. You go over there and listen, y'all. Y'all don't want to miss. I'm telling all my business.
All the tea. Listen, but it's good because you got to discuss those things. I was taught that covered up wounds don't get healed. So
Oh,
sometimes you got to
that was a
discuss.
word. That was a word.
Sometimes you got to discuss it to get healed. So that's all we have time for today. But I definitely want to give a shout out to Bree. Thank you again, not just for agreeing to do the podcast, but for always being super supportive of Singles Exchange. From one black woman to another, I know how hard the process is when you're trying to build your own empire, and you doing the dang thing. So
Thank you.
keep going. And we appreciate you on behalf of me and the staff. We appreciate you, And we look forward to collabing again because you know this is not the last time.
Oh, absolutely not. I got some stuff in store as well. We'll definitely be talking about it.
We'll be collabing soon. And for those exchangers, be sure to follow Bri on all of her outlets. Be sure to buy her book. Be sure to check out her podcast. Just do your thing. Go and show Bri some love.
Subscribe
And
to the podcast, y'all. Go buy the book. I need all of the support. Help me
exactly.
out.
Your likes and your shares help. So do it all. So yeah, thank y'all for kicking it with us, and hope you guys had a good time. Let's exchange.